Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's astrological report. This is for January 20 through January 26 of 2026. Hope you're all doing well. So this week we start things off with a brand new season. The sun is now ingressed Aquarius. We have an Aquarius stellium happening, which will only increase as the week goes on because we'll also have Mercury ingressing Aquarius later today, and then by Friday this week Mars will ingress Aquarius as well. So a huge amount of Aquarius happening, and it even looks like an Aquarius new moon right now as the moon is also waxing forward in Aquarius. But this is rooted back in Capricorn new moon last week, but everything is in this transition into Aquarius, an air sign now. But there is this really focused energy going on in the sky, obviously with this stellium happening. So wherever you have Aquarius in your birth chart, there is a tremendous amount of energy being focused there right now. It's really pinpointed. And we have these other planets, of course. A lot of these are the outer planets besides Jupiter. So a lot of our everyday life and inner energy is focused on Aquarius now. And it's all wrapped around Pluto. We've already had both the moon and Venus crossing over Pluto. So even this last 24 hours, Venus conjunct Pluto, that's going to affect the markets and relationships. And as I've been saying, Venus is out in front, leading the crowd. Now the moon has taken over, building, waxing this cycle forward. But Venus is in the lead, and so resources and relationships are out in front, a major concern for the world. But transformation is also taking place, and power struggles, power plays, these undercurrents are happening and focused on. So there is a big spotlight coming in this week about the shadow with Pluto, Sun conjunct Pluto. It's very transformative. It's very intense time. Now, this is Aquarius. It's trying to be more objective and intellectual about things and kind of detach a little more from the strong emotions that are in the background, but it's still Pluto that stirs up a lot of powerful emotions and feelings. But the power is in the community, Aquarius. That's the focus. The community, organizations, groups of people, politics, science and technology is coming into focus this week. So things are really going to be amped up, and overall it'll be a pretty transformative week based on what plays out in the world. So Pluto is the main theme. Transformation, intensity, a little bit of extremism is in the air with everything wrapped around Pluto. So that's a big part of what's going to be happening. The moon is going to wax forward through the rest of Aquarius, all through Pisces, all through Aries, and halfway through Taurus for the week ahead. We also have some big aspects, including Mercury making the final sextile to Neptune from this Capricorn to Neptune at this last week of Pisces. This is huge because this is the last week that we're ever going to experience Neptune in Pisces for the rest of our lives. And also when the moon reaches Neptune, that'll be the last time we're ever going to have Moon Neptune in Pisces. So we're at a strong ending here and the beginning of a new era, a new reality for the world, as Neptune will ingress back to 0 degrees of Aries by next Monday on January 26th. So we're at the end and a beginning in a sense. And then after Mercury makes that sextile to Neptune, I'll explain more about that as I go through the daily charts. Mercury will then ingress Aquarius later today. Change of perception and communication style. And Mercury and the Sun will also conjunct for the Cazimi, where Mercury reaches the heart of the Sun this week and turns the corner, indicating that there could be insights, there could be news and information that's very important as these dynamics are beginning to change. So expect some important news and information for the week ahead. That Sun-Mercury conjunction will be on Wednesday, January 21st. Then Mercury will conjunct Pluto on January 22nd. So this is going to be very powerful, persuasive communication I'll be talking about. More about that as I go through the chart. That'll be January 22nd, and then also Mars is sextile Neptune as Mars reaches the last critical degree of Capricorn, making that connection to Neptune right before it changes signs. And then by January 23 on Friday, Mars ingresses Aquarius, and it's a change of gears and action for the world, generally speaking. That's also the day that the Sun is conjunct Pluto, putting a big spotlight on intensity, extremism, transformation. This is going to affect world leaders and just leaders in general. That has a strong focus on power dynamics, but also, again, the shadow and what's being exposed that is normally hidden and under the surface. I'll be talking more about that. And there's a lot of aspects on Friday. But then this weekend, Venus is making an in conjunction to the South Node. We'll have to pick up on things of the past and still deal with our Virgo area of life. And then Mercury will make that in conjunction to the South Node as well. But by Sunday, we do have kind of a challenging time here. It looks like perhaps Saturday and Sunday are a bit challenging. But by Sunday, the moon in Taurus is going to start to square all of these Aquarius planets. And we're going to enter the first quarter moon, where the moon is half full up in the sky, the crisis and action point. And I'll talk about more on what that might mean. And then by next Monday, January 26th, is when we have this big ingress of Neptune into Aries. For the long-term future, that is our new reality, and I'll explain more about that. So these are all the aspects for the week. Check the description. They're written out for you along with timestamps. All right, so with all that, looking at the chart, again, we have a strong focused energy here. Wherever you have Aquarius in your birth chart, it's different for everybody, but generally it is more of a time to where we have a lot of air, which is more up in the head. It's also more of a social time, communicative time, intellectual time, but again, trying to be more objective and detached when we're dealing with certain things from this point forward. But it's very hard to be detached when everything is wrapped around Pluto. That usually shows strong emotional energy wherever Pluto is. But this is the part of the zodiac that's connected to this next level of life, this new era with Pluto and Aquarius. This is where the power is now for the long-term future. But Pluto is also Lord of the underworld. It's where the shadow is. The things that are ugly and will be coming out and be exposed. Now, there's both positive and negative about this transit of Pluto and Aquarius that's being highlighted right now. There's going to be a lot of new technologies. This is going to be a very futuristic time period that the world is coming into. So there's going to be a lot of new discoveries, new technologies coming out, both positive and negative. The positive is that there could be new things that come out that could improve our lives and make things better. But at the same time, there's going to be this power in technology as well from this point forward that really can show that technology will have a lot of power over us. And then it's also about the power dynamic within certain organizations and groups of people and politics. This is the shadow that's going to be coming out, and we're going to be seeing more and more of these undercurrents within the community energy. And again, it's also going to affect friendships and your overall social life, generally speaking. And then wherever you have Aquarius in your birth chart and what that area means, that's where the power is for you in this next part of your life. But it's shadowy. It's not always nice and pleasant and pretty energy wherever Pluto is going. And so you have to expect that ugly things can be exposed. Things can come out that we have to deal with, that we have to see. And then that leads to transformation as well. So expect that this week. A lot of intensity, extremism, and transformation in the air. And again, with Venus crossing over Pluto, markets are responding to that. Plus, all this Aquarius is square Taurus, the money, the resources. And we're now in the energy of what we're going to be building up to with this Aquarius solar eclipse by February 17. And so this is revolutionary energy. And you're going to see a lot more of these revolutionary vibes building up, but it's all at odds right now with Taurus, the money, the resources. And there's likely going to be some like grand finale about changes to the financial system building up this year, and maybe even that eclipse coming up on February 17, which is square Uranus, will, plant seeds of intentions for the rest of the year of changes around money and resources. But again, Aquarius is just at odds with Taurus. These two signs are clashing, and there's a clash too building up this week, and we're going to really see that, I think, by this weekend into next week with that first quarter moon in Taurus squaring all the Aquarius. It's like money and funding, resources, are intensified with groups and organizations and people, around money and financial dynamics in the air. But I think that once Venus starts to separate more and more from that Pluto, markets should stabilize. I don't think it's anything crazy, this week. It's going to be, probably maybe 2%, 2 to 3% at max, I would imagine, any kind of a downswing. But I don't think it's like a major pullback or anything yet. We are building up to that. I have been telling you guys, you might want to think about taking profits, because we've been at these all-time highs, and I do think we're kind of getting there, getting ready for a pullback soon. So yeah, there's a lot here that was focused on money and resources and also relationships. Relationships have changed flavors since last week with this Venus going through Aquarius, crossing over Pluto. Normally, relationships are wanting to be a little more detached in this phase. It's not super intimate, or it's more focused on friends and group and community and needing space. Freedom and independence is a strong focus with all this Aquarius coming in, but also with the group and the community, not getting overly smothered by other people, and things like that. So giving each other space, that's what's needed in relationship. Try not to smother anybody during this process, but there could also be some undercurrents of power plays in certain relationships, including friends and groups and community. I also think that there is going to be some sort of new discovery this year, or not discovery, but more like technology that's coming out and being announced, that's been tested. A lot of different technologies have been tested the last few years behind the scenes, and now I think they're going to be coming out in a bigger way for all to see and understand, including probably a new military technology, new military weapon, I'm thinking is going to be a part of this coming out this year. Something big and new is definitely going to be coming out for the world. And just know that technology is the future from this point forward. More and more crazy technology. All right, so with all that, I'm going to start going through the chart day by day. I'm going to start here on Tuesday, January 20th, and we have the moon out in front, waxing forward from that new moon. The moon will be changing signs later tonight, but for most of the day, the moon is in Aquarius. So moon in Aquarius shows that things are different. Things are a little bit odd, but this is the energy of, again, freedom and independence, not getting overly smothered in emotions and feelings, which is at odds with Jupiter down here in Cancer, where there are still strong emotions and feelings and needs for safety, security, and home and family matters, and people being pulled into their inner world. Well, all this energy is more outward. So it is usually more active, more social, generally speaking. And people's moods and reactions might be different, than what we expect. And there's a need to be super authentic here and original and unique and doing your own thing as the day goes on. But we do have some aspects here. The first aspect was the moon in conjunct to Jupiter. So again, the moon in Aquarius is at odds with Jupiter in Cancer. They're on two different pages. This detached placement within friends and group and community and your outer world versus those strong emotional needs and more privacy and inward home and family life. They're clashing with each other first thing this morning, but then that moon will move on. It only lasts for a couple hours there. And then we have Mercury at the last degree, last minutes, really. It's literally about to change signs here. Mercury is at this last critical degree of Capricorn, 29 degrees, a sense of urgency and a sense that something is about to change or end in mercurial ways today. So information is at a critical point. The way people are thinking and communicating in Capricorn, usually more traditional, more structured, methodical, a little slower paced. Although Mercury has been next to Mars for several days, that's causing issues around transportation, traveling, technology issues. In fact, I'm making this report for a second time. My first video I made, there was no audio for some reason. And so I'm having to do this again. That's, can be some of these issues. So there's still some agitation, some friction mentally going on and through communications. But again, the communication style is about to change today as Mercury will be changing signs into Aquarius. So it's kind of this change of perception and style. Mercury's coming into a very good position later today as it will change signs. But before it changes signs, Mercury's making that sextile to Neptune. So this is the last time Mercury is connected to Neptune in Pisces in this way. And Neptune in Pisces, again, it's imagination, it's creativity. It's intuitive, but it's also creative with goals and ambitions. This is kind of the same spot as the new moon in Capricorn that's talking about what we want to achieve for the year. So I think this Neptune adds more inspiration and creativity and dreams into the mix of what's going on with things for the future. It can also be a little more sensitive, for today, even yesterday, today, in people's communication and their thoughts. And then as the day goes on, Mercury will change signs. So let's move this forward here. Yeah, Mercury ingresses Aquarius and is building up this conjunction with the sun. So the second half of the day, this will be late morning on the West Coast, second half of the day for other places. So a perception change, but Mercury does well in air signs. I like it in Libra, Gemini is the best, and then Aquarius. All the air signs Mercury does pretty well in. It's good to be objective and intellectual about things and kind of see things in a different way, a different perception. And again, we're going to start to get perhaps more insights and downloads, or again, important information, news, media, communications that will come in, kind of a turning point as we move forward this week as Mercury crosses over the sun there. So now Mercury in Aquarius, all this Aquarius is still being ruled by Saturn. So it all comes back to Saturn behind the scenes at these last degrees of Pisces, building up to this fresh new world point coming up. But again, it's still revolutionary energy. This is still the cycle where there's going to be an eclipse. This solar eclipse building up. So we're building up more and more revolutionary vibes. Again, intensity, transformation, and extremism is possible this week. All right, and then the moon is sextile Chiron perfectly here as Mercury changes signs. Again, late this morning, afternoon hours. So this is kind of, we're done with the hardest Chiron now, because all these Aquarius transits will come into harmony with Chiron as time goes on. So there's no more squares left. And really, it's not until April when we have an Aries new moon conjunct Chiron that we're kind of starting fresh with this Chiron energy. But we're past the hardest point. Jupiter. No, I think we're pretty much past the hardest point of this Chiron. It's still in the background a little bit, but we've had the worst of it. And so the moon is connecting to Chiron in an easier way for people's emotions and feelings about themselves today. Just for a few hours as that sextile comes in, but then the moon in Aquarius and late degrees of Aquarius will have to square Uranus. And this is going to be by Tuesday evening, Tuesday night. And this is where things get a little more crazy, a little more revolutionary. There could be some disruptions. This is where we're starting to see we're not comfortable with this Uranus. All these planets are going to have to square Uranus. It's all going to be leading to that big eclipse coming up, which is, again, about liberation and freedom and revolutionary changes in the world. But we're getting a first little glimpse of that with this new cycle as the moon squares Uranus tonight. So it could be a mood issue for some people. Mood change, circumstances could be changing unexpectedly. Again, some disruptions are possible. Some excitement in the air is possible, but things may not be as stable later tonight. Now, this is fixed energy that we're coming into. So we're going to be dominant fixed energy, which can also be a little bit stubborn too. It's usually fixed ideas, Aquarius, air, fixed thoughts, fixed ideas, but still open-minded. But it's still squaring Taurus too, which again, in this combination of squares that we're going to be building up to for the next month, it can be extra stubborn and fixed and holding on tight to things and resisting change, yet life is trying to force change and transformation. So again, a little bit critical there for a few hours tonight, and then the moon will change signs by Tuesday night from Aquarius into Pisces, and this changes the mood for the next 2.5 days from this point forward. So now we have more water again, so now we're dominant air and water. Thoughts, the mind up in the head, and the feelings and the emotions and the sensitivities, and things do get quite sensitive now by late tonight. This is really late tonight, actually. Let me back it up a little bit to be on Tuesday night there. One second. All right. Yeah, it's like right before midnight. The moon comes into Pisces on the west coast, so it'll be early morning on Wednesday that the moon ingresses Pisces for other people, different places around the world. But now again, this is an emotional, sensitive placement, energetically sensitive for the next 2.5 days. And Pisces is definitely the more like nervous system energetic sensitivity, where you can really feel things through your body and through the nervous system easily. So you have to always guard yourself when the moon is going through Pisces. You have to put up better boundaries, because your environment will really make a difference on how you feel. Other people in your life around you, their mood, their feelings, are easily absorbed, and it can feel like your own. So it's always a good time to guard yourself, put up healthy boundaries, understand what you're picking up on and feeling may be not your own. This is the sign of the collective unconsciousness, which is going through major updates and changes. So it's really easy to pick up on the world too and what's going on with everybody's moods and feelings here. But it's also might kind of try to pull people into their own world, which is clashing with all this Aquarius, which again is more outward and social with community energy. But there might be a temporary mood here, again, that kind of pulls people into behind the scenes, their own world, and their imagination and feelings and intuition and all of that. So that'll be the big mood change. Now that the moon is in Pisces, it's being ruled by the exalted Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. So again, this phase, it kind of pulls people back into these feelings, their home energy, behind the scenes, and what they need and all that. All right, now we still have this minor grand trine showing from the Capricorn new moon that we had that formed that minor grand trine, which again is a good positive aspect to create and to build and accomplish and achieve things for the year ahead. And Mars is still activating that minor grand trine, but there's also a minor grand trine for this bigger world dynamic that came in last summer, when we had all these planets in their new signs. So that minor grand trine will shift to fire and air and continue to show that there is a world development that will come together and work out. There is a positivity here. But here's the thing about this Neptune. It's distorting reality, and there's a lot of projections on this world level right now. A lot of confusion and uncertainty and just a lack of understanding of what's really going on. But this is also a projection, on social media, news, all over, wherever you get information, this perception of reality. It's kind of a false reality. And people can really get into a negative mind frame, because Saturn is conjunct this Neptune, as a part of it. And people think that everything is horrible. the world is gonna fall apart. The world is at an end. All these kind of crazy thoughts and feelings that everything is going to crumble and be destroyed. That's all an illusion, guaranteed an illusion. Things are going to work out. Yes, the world is being restructured. There's no way around it. There's no stopping it. This is a totally new era for the world. Especially, we're going to see it more and more as we get further into this year and beyond. But it's a new reality, a new world, but it's all going to come together, and we're all going to get used to the new order and structures and the rules and the laws and everything that's trying to change. But again, people are also projecting a lot of negativity, which I get. The world seems negative, but it's not as negative as people think. I'm going off of astrology. I'm not going off my beliefs or my opinions. I'm going off of astrology. And this minor grand trine that's coming into the world again this year in a way that's never been here before, it's showing that everything is coming into a new alignment in a way that's going to work out. But at first, when you change big systems and structures, it feels a little bit chaotic. People hate change. And of course, there has to be like things that happen in order to shape this new world order and dynamic coming up. So it's not going to be as bad as a lot of people are projecting and fearing, because there is a lot of fear and worry and doubt and confusion and uncertainty. But if we trust the astrology, which I do totally, everything is going to come together and work out as time goes on. So with that, we also are at this critical point, though. There is a lot of critical things happening that's trying to shape the world in this new way. So as I was mentioning, Saturn and Neptune coming to Aries is about this global restructuring. So that's happening on a bigger picture. But we also have this national issue with this transit, because last time Neptune was in this exact spot and ingressed Aries, it was literally the beginning of the Civil War. So this is kind of a Civil War energy. But last time, Saturn was not involved. And so it's not going to play out exactly the same, obviously. It's not going to be the exact same dynamics, but there are similarities. And Saturn, it's possible here that Saturn will limit and restrict the Civil War completely. It's going to play out in small ways. There's a cold Civil War already happening, but as Neptune reaches Aries, that's usually the trigger point for the last ingress. And that's coming up, this week, next week. And it's happening with all this Pluto activation, which again is revolutionary. And so it's possible there could be a trigger, a temporary trigger, something that gets activated. If it plays out the same way as last time, last time it was Abraham Lincoln, becoming president and really stirring up the system and changing the system and bringing a lot of fear to the status quo. And that was a part of the buildup to the Civil War to end slavery. And, last time there was a trigger event. The Democrats fired the first shot that actually triggered the actual war. So there's always a chance that there could be some trigger event, this week or next week, hopefully not. And then even all the way up to this eclipse in late February, there's a possible trigger that could happen that could show, this internal conflict that the U.S. is going through, and that's all that we're seeing in Minnesota and, dealing with the governor and the mayor and the National Guard. All these things are signs of the Civil War for the United States that the last cycle of this showed. But again, I think Saturn is going to restrict it and limit the full extent of that for this cycle coming up. There's also a point here that we have to really honestly look at objectively. And when it comes to the United States politics, Pisces and Aries is at the foundation of the United States birth chart. So U.S. politics will show that Pisces is the left and Aries is the right at the fourth house foundation. But Aries is the true IC. And that's where everything is coming into. And there's this change to Pisces, the same as the last cycle when Neptune was in Pisces for all those years. And then it shifted into Aries. It was a new reality, a change of the rules and the laws and the systems of the country. And that's happening again. But it is a shift from in politics. It really is a shift in politics for this new era that's coming in. And, when Neptune gets to this point in this cycle, the United States pretty much gets to a point where both sides are they can't communicate with each other anymore. There's lies being told, exaggerations, distortions to the truth on both sides, where it just becomes pointless. There's nothing left to do. They just get so mad they want to punch each other in the face, and then, it sparks the war. So we are in that energy in the background on top of this bigger global change going on all at the same time. So even though I still see in the bigger picture, longer term, it's all going to work out, it's all going to come together, but we have to go through intensity in the meantime to get to that next level of life. So that's how I'm seeing all that, folks. And, there is a disillusionment on the world level that comes along with this transit that's changing this week into next week. So anyway, that's what I'm seeing for Tuesday. Let's move on here. And I'm going to come into Wednesday, January 21st. The moon is waxing through Pisces, and there's really just two aspects going on. And the main aspect is the Mercury-Sun cazimi on Wednesday, where Mercury reaches the heart of the sun for, downloads and important information and insights and awareness that could be coming in a major way for people here on Wednesday. So that'll be the theme all day long. Very focused, strong communication and information. At the same time, the moon in Pisces is reaching the north node of destiny. And so it's a very fateful, destined day all day on Wednesday. No matter what happens, it's shaping the long-term future, which again could be connected to this turning of the corner for Mercury and the sun. So really that's the theme all day long. The moon in Pisces behind the scenes, connected to fate and destiny. Anything happening is pushing us forward energetically, intuitively into the path that we need to be on, which is still trying to update our Pisces area of life. This is going to be refreshed and renewed, and Pisces is going to be back to normal again. And it's going to be such a relief. Although we're still going to have Pisces themes forever because we have Pisces as a part of the zodiac, but it's not going to be in the same way that it's been for years once all this gets out of Pisces. So I'm excited for people that have Pisces, and I'm excited for the world and how we have to deal with that energy, which is changing for the better as time goes on. And yeah, at this point in the world, things have just gotten too extreme, too out there, too distorted, and then we have to come back to the other polarity. And so now, Pisces has gotten all kind of distorted for so many years, and now Aries will get distorted. Now the right will have this bubble building up for years and years into the future for what's next. It doesn't mean it's all bad. There'll be some things that are distorted and negative about it, and there'll be other things that are positive. But now Aries is going to be the next up for this big new era coming up for the world's imagination and creativity and vision. I'll talk more about that when we see the Neptune ingress at the end of this report. I'll talk more about what that might mean, Neptune and Aries. But yeah, here on Wednesday, just a couple aspects here in focus, but it's still extreme. It's still intense because now Mercury is building up the conjunction with Pluto. So all day it's very sensitive, intuitive, imaginative, being pulled into our own world, maybe distractions, maybe things behind the scenes, but still a strong focus on group, friends, community, organizations, and all of that. So moving forward, we get to Thursday on January 22nd. The moon is halfway through Pisces, and we have three aspects. The moon is actually trine down to Jupiter for the first aspect of the day, and that's a few hours of feeling more connected to hope, inspiration, support, emotions, intuition in those ways, what we need, family matters, home and family stuff, and what we're dealing with from behind the scenes. But there's an opening there to feel more nurtured or content or getting something we need and want for a few hours on Thursday morning. And then we see that Mercury is conjunct Pluto, so that will be a main theme for the whole day. So Mercury conjunct Pluto, again, it's intense communication. It's very powerful words that are being spoken. Be mindful of your words when you're wrapped up in conversations this week, both with yourself and others, because words can have a transformative effect for positive or negative. And again, it's very persuasive communication that's happening. And Mercury conjunct Pluto is about getting down to the bottom of truth. It's about speaking about the taboos, being honest about things, even if it's ugly and not pleasant to talk about. We want to get down to the bottom of what's real and what's true here. But it's also quite powerful in what is said and what's spoken. And ultimately, it's leading to a mental transformation of perception, based on what's playing out this week. And Mars has reached the last degree of Capricorn by Wednesday into Thursday here. Very critical. Sense of urgency for things to happen, for things to end. And again, Mars is making this final connection to Neptune. So we're never going to have this aspect ever again in our lifetime. It can go either way. It can be a positive aspect or a negative. Generally, it's more positive, in saying that we can be inspired by our dreams, our fantasies to take powerful action and get results done. We can create our dreams easier with this aspect. In some cases, the negative side would be feeling a little bit like a martyr, feeling confused, lost, uncertain, not knowing what to do, or losing energy in a sense, like feeling drained or wanting to escape and avoid rather than put in the hard work. But because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, it still gives us a little more of the capability of overcoming any kind of negative results and focusing more on positive results about work and goals and trying to get something done. But it can also be taking action based on belief, on faith, on illusions, anything like that. And kind of soften Mars a little bit, perhaps, too. Sometimes, though, that connection can show like tear gas being used or other chemicals happening in the world in some way, or oil, gas stuff happening in some cases there. And then also Navy, military connecting to Navy events still in play here this week, happening in some case. So there's that, and that's the last aspect for the day on Thursday. But the moon is approaching Saturn and Neptune. The last time we're ever going to have, well, the moon will come back around to Saturn, but last time we're going to have that moon Neptune for sure. But the moon is approaching Saturn. Things are going to start to feel a little more heavy and serious as we move forward here. And then we get to Friday on January 23, and we do see that the moon is conjunct Saturn. And this is the day where we have most of the aspects. So this will probably be the busiest day, the most energetic day, and important day this Friday. So the first aspect is the moon in Pisces making a sextile down to Uranus in Taurus, kind of reactivating that minor grand trine a little bit. So this is where circumstances are in a good way with Uranus, the money, the resources, and changes and innovations. And it's kind of also reactivating that sextile between Saturn and Uranus, which shows that governments are connected to Uranus in a sextile, which is an opportunity for governments to try new things, to be innovative, to change the systems and the structures in a way that won't cause collapse or chaos in the order of things. So we can create positive changes by stepping outside the box and trying new things in this Friday morning aspect. And then we see that Mars ingresses Aquarius now on Friday morning. So we have a change of gears, a change of action energy, a change for energy for the military and the action plan for the military. Mars is still behind everything, but Mars is also right next to Pluto now. And Mars will be the last planet that has to cross Pluto. So that's kind of volcano type of energy, eruptive energy, powerful, but it's Aquarius. So it's still trying to work with emotions and feelings in a way that's more detached and objective and intellectual. So it's trying not to be overly emotional. But, we still have this Pisces and we still have this Jupiter and Cancer. So we still have a lot of water and a lot of emotions that are private behind the scenes. But now there's just a huge amount of Aquarius here, huge stellium. Again, all wrapped around Pluto of transformation, intensity, and extremism, especially within politics, groups, community, organizations, protests. All these more public social types of energies are pretty extreme. And again, wherever you have Aquarius in your chart, whatever that is for you, that's like where all the energy is pretty much in your life right now in that area. So we see that the moon conjunct Saturn, it's heavy, it's serious. There's pressure, there's a little bit of weight, there's this burden, which can go both positive or negative. Again, with all these distortions and projections and false realities. And, again, people could be feeling pretty negative about the world, about the future, and project all that out. So you can't get wrapped up in that collective unconsciousness that the moon is going through and really picking up strongly here on Friday. And then the moon is conjunct Neptune at this very last degree, last minute. And again, we're never going to have this type of conjunction again. It'll be very different with Moon, Neptune, and Aries than it is in Pisces. This is the max emotional sensitivity of the zodiac right here. And we're never going to have it in this way ever again. So pretty rare. Pretty sensitive, imaginative, creative, or again, escapism, avoidance, procrastinating, wrapped up in delusions or your own world. Some people wrapped up in their spiritual life. That's fine. It can be creative and imaginative, film, photography, movies, drugs, alcohol. All these things can be very strong. But there is going to be a mood change and a dynamic change as the day goes on, because this is all super early on Friday morning. So for most of the day, the moon is actually going to be in Aries. And that's what happens as the moon ingresses into Aries now on this world point. So we have world developments that are really showing by Friday, most likely. Now that the moon is in Aries, it's being ruled by this Mars. And Mars is coming back to 0 Aquarius. Plus the moon is sextile Mars. So now, as the moon ingresses Aries, there's several easy aspects for the rest of the day on Friday, because the moon in Aries is in harmony with all of these planets in Aquarius, and that moon will connect to all of them in a sextile. So something changes, the mood changes as the day goes on Friday to be more cooperative. Now, this is still a dynamic of freedom and independence, with all this Aquarius and now the moon in Aries. Again, people need their space and their freedom to do what they want to do. It is kind of a mood to be more of a loner mood, but it's connecting well with the community and the friends and the group activity. So we can still have a sense of doing what we want to do, having some independence and freedom while connecting to social energy in the group. But with the moon in Aries, things tend to speed up. Things are more instinctive, more impulsive. There's a stronger emotional need for the self and to be first and to win and to kind of initiate, start things, be more active, be more outward from this point forward for the next 2.5 days. And again, this moon is really connecting to everything. So moon sextile Mars, good for action, emotionally feeling, driven and active in some way. And moon sextile Pluto, the mood and the feelings and circumstances are comfortable with the power dynamic here on Friday. It's still intense, it's still powerful, but we're okay with it for the most part. And then the moon and the sun are connecting in a sextile. So this is the first part of the cycle where there's a smooth section of it for the next 2.5 days until that moon gets to Taurus, and then it's a different story. So more cooperation, more flowing with what's happening, but also fire and air. It's about thoughts, ideas, the mind, and it's about action and how we feel about it. And again, fire and air is the future for this next era, taking action on new thoughts and new ideas for the world. And then Moon Mercury, great day also for communications, networking, if you have to do, any kind of important communications or other material activity. Be a good day to do it on Friday evening, Friday afternoon. And then the moon connects to Venus in a sextile, the final sextile out of this. And there's a connection to value, money, resources, relationships. Now, this isn't super intimate. This is where Venus is in Aquarius and the moon is in Aries, the two freedom signs. So relationships, again, in this phase, they want more freedom. They want more space. They don't want to get wrapped up into deep emotions, and intimacy necessarily in the same way. And this is generally speaking for the world. It's not, every single case, but this is the background. And all this Aquarius, it's opposite Leo. Leo's the heart, the passion, the drama, the self-expression, the creativity, all this bold, big energy. This is opposite of that. This is winter. This is Aquarius. It's colder. It's drier. It's ruled by Saturn. So it's intense and powerful, but it's not extra, if that makes sense. But so even though the moon and Venus are connecting in a sextile, it's more on a friendship level, more of a detached level, but still enjoying, other people or friends or community, or still having pleasurable circumstances. It's just not on a deep emotional level, basically. And then the last aspect for Friday is the moon in conjunct to the South Node. And that's this moon in Aries having to pick up on this South Node at the same time that Venus starts to make the inconjunction to the South Node. So there's a finger of God here pointing towards that South Node. So again, there's still more work to be done in your Virgo area of life. Generally, it's about work, service, and health, going through changes, restructuring, reorganizing, purging, purifying this area of your chart to make it better. And so we have this need for independence and community and all that, but yet we still have practical things that we have to deal with, or again, distractions or something that kind of takes us away from the full freedom there for a few hours as we're pulled into things of the past on Friday late night, on Friday, the last aspect. So it's super late at night. And then this leads us to the weekend on Saturday, January 24. We have 3 aspects, including the moon in Aries, continuing this need for freedom and independence and doing things quickly, starting things, making the self a priority. But then that moon squares Jupiter by Saturday afternoon. It's Saturday afternoon, really. So we're not going to get our first aspect until late afternoon on Saturday there. But moon square Jupiter, and also the moon will conjunct Chiron. So it's all about this Jupiter Chiron again, and the moon going through there. Now again, the square from Jupiter Chiron has weakened somewhat. It's separated a little bit, so it's not as strong as it's been, but the moon is still going through sensitive territory here on Saturday. So again, I think that Saturday and Sunday are going to be the 2 most challenging days. There'll be other times throughout the week that are challenging here and there, but this looks like this weekend has a lot of challenges, and this is the beginning of it. So moon square Jupiter can just show that the mood is over the top. People are seeking to be fulfilled, and it's hard to be fulfilled and satisfied with something in this moment. Circumstances could be kind of overinflated. People's moods could be overinflated. Circumstances are big, whatever's happening. big emotional reactions that could be over the top, out of balance. And then again, some sensitivity is possible. Some accidents or injuries or wounds, that this Chiron has been bringing up could be triggered again. It's possible. There could be some sort of a trigger event here on Saturday. And then we also have Venus, again, making that exacting conjunction to the South Node. So relationships triggered by the past in some way, or money and resources having to adjust to something this is Saturday, so it may be more about relationships or something that have some sort of an irritation or adjustment in some context, possibly. It's a minor aspect. And then the moon is conjunct Chiron perfectly for Saturday night. So Saturday night, I don't know. I personally would be a little more hesitant on engaging in anything with the world. But, if you do have some sort of event planned on Saturday night, it's probably going to be fine. This is usually indicating that there might be something happening in one or two places around the world that's kind of difficult or something. But I think for the most part, most people will be fine. It could still be uncomfortable. It may not still be the best mood or dynamic or circumstances with this on Saturday night, and the moon isn't really connecting to that social energy as strongly now. So to me, it just doesn't look like the vibes are very good for Saturday night. And there's possible wounding taking place there on some levels. So that's what we have for that. And then we get to Sunday on January 25, and this is definitely a hard day. The moon is at the last degrees of Aries for the first part of the day, but the moon will change signs and ingress Taurus. And that will happen by the afternoon hours. So the first half of the day, the moon is in Aries, not making any aspects, still kind of that independent, quick vibe, starting things. But then there's this mood change with moon in Taurus. Things want to slow down now. Things get more sluggish now. The moon is exalted. The moon likes to be here, but this is the big challenge between Aquarius and Taurus. So this is on Sunday. Luckily, the market is closed, but this could carry over to Monday as well with this tension. And all day on Sunday, there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of tension here because we see that the moon, right off the bat as it ingresses Taurus, it starts to square Mars. Now that the moon is in Taurus for the next 2.5 days, it's being ruled by Venus, which is out in front, taking the lead. Again, resources and money and certain relationships are extremely important for what's going on in this time frame. So now it's all about resources and money and this dynamic that's being stirred up for changes. So normally the moon here says, no, we want to keep things pleasant and nice and stable and enjoyable for all. Let's keep the drama low and the tension and the friction and the conflict low. But we don't have a choice because the moon is running into all of these squares with this stellium now, and it's a big one. So moon square Mars can be emotionally agitating. Emotionally there's friction, but at the same time, moon square Mars can show people are emotionally engaged or being pushed into taking action. They feel the need to do something with this energy. It's hard to just relax like the Taurus moon would like to do. Relax, deal with comforts and pleasures and the 5 senses of enjoyment. But it's clashing with the community, with friends, with politics, with your social dynamic out in the world, or wherever you personally have Aquarius in your chart. It's being squared and activated in tension Sunday into Monday. So emotional conflict, some aggression. This can be different things. It can be conflicts in the world, in protests, and earth events are possible here with all this intensity this week and transformation. But there is some conflict, so people's moods are going to be triggered on Sunday. And then the moon is square Pluto And again, that Mars is also building up to Pluto too. So moon square Mars, moon square Pluto, a forced change, a forced transformation. Again, extremism and intensity is in the air, undercurrents of power and control and manipulation and things that are playing out here that we're dealing with in the world, generally speaking. And then we reach the first quarter square, the moon square the sun, the challenge of this cycle that was rooted in Capricorn. So the first quarter is the crisis and action point from the new moon. So this is where the world is generally challenged on how to move their intentions forward that were set during that new moon time period. So the crisis in action, feeling blocked. There's obstacles. There's things that are making this difficult in some way. How can we move financial energy forward? There could also be a conflict here about money, resources, and funding for certain groups and communities and organizations that this is talking about as well. So something about money could really be coming out here by next week, in this conflict way. But it's not a time to back down. It's not a time to retreat or be defeated. It's a time to be innovative and creative and find these solutions that we need to overcome the obstacle. So for some people, it could literally be obstacles that they have to find a way past, or it could be a mood issue for some people, not feeling like wanting to do something, but yet some people have to do something here on Sunday. It's kind of a mood that's at odds with the social side of life and the community side of life. So if there is community activity on Sunday that you have planned, again, just know the mood in the background. It's not as smooth. There could be some issues, within the social dynamics happening on that day. And it's usually a part of the cycle where things aren't as cooperative and smooth and as flowing generally there. And then Mercury is in conjunct to that south node again. All these planets have to connect to things that still need work, still need restructuring, reorganizing, purging, and purifying, or health issues, or work and things that are changing that require our attention. That's pulling us away at times. So that's on Sunday. And then we get to Monday on January 26th. And the first aspect is the Taurus moon connected to the nodes of fate, first thing early morning, so fateful day. And then the moon is squaring Mercury and Venus, continuing those squares into Monday. So this could be an issue for the market on Monday if it's open on January 26th. First thing in the morning. This is, the market isn't quite open. For most of the day on Monday, the moon will be past that square, but it does square the Mercury and Venus first thing in the morning before the market opens. So that could affect the market, but it may not affect it the entire day. It's possible. But there is a clash here going on between feelings and the thoughts and the communications, and also about money and relationships have some tension here. It's not as easy to be fulfilled or satisfied. Things aren't as smooth within relationship dynamics, generally here on Monday morning. But it is the last square that the moon has to make past this stellium here. And then we see the Neptune changing signs for good. It'll be in Aries now for many, many years. And this is the beginning of this next reality for the world here with this Neptune ingress. So again, hopefully there's no trigger event that's, starts some major conflict in the United States. And I mean a real major conflict. It's possible. But again, I'm hoping that the Saturn next to this shows that this time around there'll be a restriction and a limitation to the Civil War. It won't manifest fully like it did last time. But the energy of the Civil War is still in the background very strongly here. And again, it's the beginning of this new reality with Neptune in Aries. So wherever Neptune goes, we tend to romanticize that energy. And, with Neptune and Pisces for all those years, Neptune just amplified everything that Pisces represents, which already deals with imagination and fantasy and illusions. And, Pisces is the sign of slavery. I just have to be honest with you guys. We have to be real about astrology, and how it plays out in the world. And, it makes sense if you think about it. The 12th house, it rules prisons and institutions and isolation and behind the scenes. And Pisces in the 12th house is known as the psychological house, and escapism and drugs and alcohol and all the challenges that come along with Pisces. Neptune was enhancing and inflating, and distorting, along with this square to Sagittarius of truth that I've talked about, along with the opposition to Virgo of details and the orders got diluted and distorted, and then the square over to Gemini, data, information, news, media, education. All these things have been affected by this Neptune. So that's over now. And now it's a cardinal time. It's Neptune romanticizing, enhancing everything about Aries. So normally Neptune here shows there's more of a romanticizing of the self, of bravery, of courage, of being able to start things. The dream is to initiate something. And also, as Neptune ingresses Aries, it's usually where people are willing to fight for their beliefs now and their reality. But it's about taking action, the dream, the romanticizing of something, of conquering something, of expansion, because Aries is a cardinal sign. It is about starting things. And that's what this new reality is about, of taking the action for something new to happen. And this is extremely new because all these planets are entering the 0 degree mark. 0 is extremely brand new stuff. And there's a brand new reality for the world here. Now, again, this is also about, there is a little more of a romanticizing of war and conflict for some people too, because they feel like it's necessary. Again, it's a moral thing. It's a belief thing. It's justified to take certain military action in this new era. And then also expansion. Like I was saying, last time Neptune was here, it's about pioneering the West and expanding the country. And now that we've already done that, there's still going to be a little bit of that left on this more global kind of way where, this next era, there is going to be new kind of conquests and expansion goals for certain countries and leaders. And then also space. I think that's the next thing, since we have all this futuristic new era of technology coming in, and now we're coming into this Aries, exploring and pioneering. That's going to be on next level stuff, probably space and other planets, over this next 20 years, basically. And again, I also think it's some sort of a new military technology that's going to be visible and coming out more and more as well. That's been built over this last several years, because that was part of my prediction of Uranus and Taurus since 2018. When that happens, there's usually a lot new military weapons that are created and invented. And even the war in Ukraine with drone warfare and all that. And then there's other technologies that have been invented too that are going to be coming out more and more. So again, wherever you have Aries in your chart, that's where the new dream is going to be building up. That's where there's also going to be like a little bit of a bubble. Neptune acts very differently in Aries than it does in Pisces. And that's because again, Pisces is associated with a lot of suffering and imprisonment and things that are difficult. And so Aries isn't exactly that same way. There's still going to be some issues at times with this Neptune and Aries for sure. Another thing we have to look at is, as we have this ingress of Neptune and Aries for good, it's ruled by Mars. So where is Mars? Because this is kind of the birth chart for this Neptune and Aries for the long-term future, what we see right here. And luckily, Mars and Neptune are sextile. But Mars is in Aquarius next to Pluto, so it still has a revolutionary connection to this next reality for the world and what the conflict and the aggression and the conquering will be about. It's revolutionary, and it's very futuristic because of the Aquarius component. But luckily, there's no major squares to Mars or major oppositions to Mars and Pluto. This Jupiter is not in opposition yet. Some people think that Jupiter is opposing Pluto right now. That's next level. In fact, Jupiter is moving away from the opposition right now, retrograde. Then it'll station direct and build up. And once we get to Leo season, that's when we're really in the Jupiter-Pluto opposition. So we already went through the Jupiter opposition from Capricorn, and now that opposition in the short term is moving on until we get to, again, Leo season. And we really activate this Jupiter-Pluto opposition next level that we haven't had yet. But it's still powerful. It's still transformative, that this is talking about. But at the same time, it's good that we're not seeing a Mars in a major hard aspect other than conjunct Pluto. It is a pretty powerful aspect that we're going to see for next week. And again, that's kind of explosive and powerful and intense that this Neptune is connected to for the future, that this chart is showing. But at least the moon is exalted and has passed the square with Mars by that point. So again, this is the beginning of this next reality for the world. Now, sometimes when an outer planet changes signs, it goes out with a bang. So sometimes there's major world events that can happen, and the odds go up. It's not guaranteed, but the odds do go up of some major event, either natural world event, like an Earth event, weather event, or again, worst case scenario would be some sort of a trigger that activated a civil war, but not in the same way as last time. It would be a little bit different. Obviously, this time around, Saturn would add something very different. And again, I'm hoping it'll restrict it to not happen, even though the energy is there in the background that we're already seeing. But if certain states try to rebel, then that's, that would be the kind of a trigger too, or something like that, or some major event that could happen. But again, let's hope not. All right, so on Monday, again, it's a fateful day. There's continued squares first thing in the morning, and then this big energetic change with Neptune in Aries. And then the last aspect is the moon sextile Jupiter by Monday night, Monday evening. And that's a good little moment there, feeling more pleasured, content, satisfied with things. The moon is exalted and Jupiter is exalted. And so that's a sweet little aspect for Monday night, that we can feel a lot better, receive something nice, or just feel good about what's going on generally there. And it comes back down to pleasures, comfort, sensitivities, food, the physical material life, enjoying things. And that's the last aspect for the week ahead. So that's what I have for you guys. And I'm running a bit late here. Had to make this video twice. But I got it done for you, and I hope it helps. And thanks for watching, and hope you have a great week.